All right, we're about to go live. Here we go.
Okay.
We're live. All right, great, YouTube. I hope you didn't lie to me. Welcome to another fabulous edition of the Brandon Bonanza podcast. Today I have a guest, but before we get into that, I have a quote that I would like to share with everybody. Let's see here. But since we're live, I don't have to be as worried because people have a lot less expectations when you're live, thank God. Share screen. It's the big green one. All right. Here we go. Maybe not. Come on, Zoom. There we go. All right. There we go. Share. Today's quote is from the Bible. A cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. And that's Proverbs for chapter 17, verse 22. Ooh, I didn't notice that earlier. Good number, 22. The master builder number. I was just talking about that. All right. So anyway, that's the quote for today. And today's guest is somebody who I talked to the last time was probably about 2 years ago. We performed comedy at like too many terrible open mics to even talk about, and a few really good ones though. So we're definitely no strangers. And my guest today is Rodney Norman. How you doing, Rodney?
I am doing absolutely splendidly delightful. Thank you for asking.
That's great. Great to hear. And my friend Rodney has recently become, I guess what you could say, like world famous. And he's been inspiring a lot of people with just the words he's saying. And when I told people that I was, oops, there we go. When I told people that I was going to go live with them, they had some questions. So, Rodney, we got a few questions for you. First one comes in. We're going to keep them anonymous here. He asks,
Okay.
my life is terrible. I hate my stinking job, and I never can have any fun. What do you think I should do?
Well, you're in good company because everybody thinks you have a stupid job too, and we're all sitting around wondering when you're going to pull your head out of whatever orifice you got shoved into, and start doing something incredible with your life. Because we're all doing the same. Well, we all keep doing that. We all keep doing jobs that we don't want to do and trying to make money for people we don't really care all that much about, who don't really care about you. So why not just go do something else? That's what I'm saying. Get out there. We're only here for a very short while. You haven't got a whole lot of time left. Why are you wasting your time doing ridiculous stuff? So you got to kind of do what you got to do so that you can go do what you really want to do. But you got to just do what you're doing now, and just know that that's part of the process of getting to do what you want to do. But you got to do the stuff you don't want to do. Then you get in a position to be in a better position to do the stuff that you do want to do. Do.
That's like flawless logic. I mean, how could anyone even argue with that? You know what I mean? That's crazy.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. This other one says, I feel so terrible. I'm so oppressed. The whole world is against me. And there's like this secret cabal of people trying to get me, and they're making me do these things. And the world is terrible. And it's all gonna go to heck. What do I do?
Well, by feeling that way, you're allowing the cabal to win, because the cabal is convincing you that they're a real reality, and that they're in control of everything, and that they're so big that you can't do anything about it. And they want you to feel like you can't do anything about it. So you're buying right into their whole thing. But if you realize that if you don't buy into it and say, hey, I'm not going to buy into this, I'm just going to be my own self and do my own thing anyway. And then more of us do what we want to be doing instead of listening to the nonsense from the cabal. Pretty soon the cabal's not going to have the control they thought that they had, even though they know they don't really have that much control, because the only control they have is by controlling you and think that they're in control. But when you realize that they're not really all that in control, and that you got more control than you thought you had, then you can start living your life and have a good time and start helping everybody else out.
Wow,
wake
I couldn't
up.
have said it. Sorry, go ahead.
That's the whole thing.
That's I think we just end the show right here. I mean, I think we just said everything we have to say.
That's all. That's it.
All
That's
right,
all you
everybody,
need
good
to
night.
hear. Okay.
Just kidding, everybody. We wouldn't do that to you. We wouldn't tease you, even though I think everything Rodney just said contains most of the message that you need to understand. Allegedly, could it be? Anyway,
Could be.
my friend Rodney Norman, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you for that lovely performance. I think that was hilarious, and it's really what the people wanted to see.
Well, that's actually Leonard McCrunsky.
Ooh.
World's he's a genius. He's gotten tired of everybody's nonsense, and he can't figure out why people aren't smart enough to figure out what they're supposed to be figuring out. And so he got tired of it. So he just started telling people what they needed to hear. And having a glorious time doing it.
I think that's brilliant. Really, because I mean, could it be that that's how you kind of feel deep down inside, and you've always felt like you wanted to spread this message, but people wouldn't accept it from you in several forms that you've tried throughout your life, and now you just found one that's a joker, you know, like a literal fool, but you're able to relay this truth, really is what it is, that you found throughout your life to these people, and they laugh. And the reason I brought in that Proverbs quote was because I think humor is really important. And I think that was their way to talk about it in the Bible. I have also several beliefs that we don't have to get into, but I think Jesus was a lot funnier than they gave him credit for.
He was hilarious.
Yeah. You know, I think they cut out most of his stuff and probably stole it and used it today. But I think that, you know, even if you don't believe Jesus was a real person, some people say it's just like an idea of a person you should attain to be. I think it's both. I think that's the way this crazy realm works. And I think that person was hilarious, especially when he was flipping those tables. I bet he was nailing them.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. His first miracle, he turns water into wine. You know, this is a dude that likes to party, and knows how to have a good time.
Exactly. And he knows to get his audience a little lick it up, you know, and they understand it sometimes, not when they're hammered, but, you know, feeling it's like a balance. Yeah.
Well, you find that when people think they're being preached to, they don't like it. You know, so the best way to get to them is convince them that they're not being preached to and that they're getting something else. And then while they're getting that, then you throw in a nugget of truth, and then it kind of blows their mind. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, I can imagine, especially up in front of a lot of people live. You know, I did a little bit of comedy my time, so I've experienced some of that, but I could just imagine on your level. The reason I got into comedy is I just like to make one person laugh. But it's weird when you just try to do it in front of one person. So, you know, you go to open mics and then you get on shows and you get to do it in front of people who actually want to hear comedy, you know, and it's a fun thing. And that was enough. But I mean, I could just imagine at your level, though, just the energy, I guess I could say, of the room and stuff.
Oh, there's nothing like making a big room full of people laugh all at the same time. It's just nothing like it. Absolutely nothing like it.
Yeah, it's just because you're kind of really doing, you know, you could look at it as God's work, or some people will say your dharma or whatever it is, but you're relieving stress and anxiety and all this stuff for a whole room full of people, at least for, you know, an hour or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been proven that laughter is one of the absolute best things you can do for your mental and your physical health. It opens up oxygen pathways. You know, there's been some research into, you know, the resonance factor and the laughter, you know, especially when you're in a group of people and we're all laughing, that it's a healing frequency that's created. And there's a lot of truth to that whole idea that laughter is the best medicine, because we're learning that it really is. It's a great medicine.
Oh yeah, I mean,
And
I
it's the
have
best way to deliver a message to anyone.
Oh,
If you get them to laugh while they're doing it.
yeah, totally. And the best medicine part too is the way I believe, I have crazy belief systems when it comes to health, but it's all right. I'm a little out there. I'm a comedian. I was a Marine. I'm 46. I've studied a lot of crazy things, but I have the belief system that it has a lot to do, your health has a lot to do with your thought process. I think this might be a crazy stance, but I think the warning on the side of a cigarette box might what gives people cancer. Sounds crazy, but anyway, even in my belief system, if it's attached to your belief and you're laughing, then you're going to get rid of despair and fear, and you're going to feel better. And I think that definitely is going to have an effect on your well-being and your health too. I think you're curing cancer out there, allegedly. Could it be? Not that we have the cure for cancer, YouTube. We're just speaking metaphorically.
Yep, they're always listening.
It's all right though. I think it kind of makes it fun, like the shows back in the day that weren't supposed to, like South Park, when they beep out swears. It was kind of funnier because like you go back and watch it with the swears, and it was kind of funnier because they were also making fun of a society where you couldn't do certain things or whatever it was. But I think that YouTube kind of makes it the same way. That's why I don't really get in despair about it. Like, they're censoring us. It's like, no, you could get away with saying what you have to say. Everybody that wants to understand some of the lies that are out there, they already understand them. You're not going to reach anyone else. Like, you could just talk about, not
Yeah,
having
you can
despair.
still get the message across.
Yeah, so it's cool. So I guess I wanted to ask you about where you've been performing lately and how those shows have been.
Oh, they've been a lot of fun. I've been getting into clubs more, which has been nice, and doing theaters. We did a movie theater this last weekend up in Maine, and it's called Smitty's, and it's a chain of like they've got like an arcade, and you can go in there and play foosball and all those the big all that kind of stuff. And then they have movie theaters, and then inside one of the movie theaters they're doing stand-up comedy once a month.
That sounds fun.
And so it's a pretty cool, it's like on a fun family entertainment center. And so we did the show. It was a lot of fun. We're going to do another one at their Wyndham, Maine location this next coming up Friday. So it's fun getting to those. I got a lot of people who just want me to come do comedy where they're at. But they don't have a comedy club, so I've had people set up rooms at restaurants. They have a big conference room or whatever. Done those. I had a guy brought us up to Alaska, and we did it inside a Harley dealership. So I'm getting to do fun shows in strange places, and it's people have never really thought about doing stand-up comedy, or have never. A lot of the people who come to my shows have never been to a stand-up comedy show because they never thought it was something they'd be interested in. And they see my videos and they've become interested, so they'll come out and see it and realize that, hey, stand-up's actually pretty fun. So,
it's
been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun just meeting people and setting up shows. And then of course I'm starting to get in with the clubs now, which is nice. I was ignored by the clubs for the longest time just because I wasn't cool and hip, just this old white dude, nobody cared about. And then I started blowing up on TikTok, and so now everybody's like, "Oh, he's a young hot prospect. Let's do it." Well, it's funny because one of the rumors out there about me is that I'm actually a young person who wears a wig and a beard.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, that was going for long. I had people actually send me private messages and get mad at me because I was making fun of old people. I'm like, I am old people. What are you talking about? And they're like, oh no, we know what you are. You're just some punk kid. I was just like, well, thank you. If you think so. But I don't know. People have weird ideas. I mean, you can't, it's so bizarre. You can never. It's just so funny that people just assume all kinds of things about you at some point in time, and it's rather hilarious. At first, you get a little worked up. It's like, why are people doing this and saying that? After a while, it just becomes hilarious. It's just even more ridiculously funny.
It's actually comedy fodder. You could probably use it like.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. The internet is so much different than everything we've ever known growing up. When someone's famous, like now you can actually send them a message, so.
Oh yeah, they respond. They'll make a comment on some thread making fun of me, and like I'm never going to see it. It's like this is a modern age. I get notified as soon as you make the comment. And being a comedian, of course, we're drawn to the negative stuff. I mean, yeah, you can have 1,000 comments of positive things, and then you get this one guy that says, "Hey, I think what you're doing is terrible." That's the guy you worry about. It's just like a live show, live performance. You're sitting there, 100 of people in there, everybody's laughing. You got that one guy sitting there with their arms folded. That's what you can't stop thinking about. He's the one you start getting upset about. It's like, oh, what's wrong with you? It's the same mentality. It's quite hilarious how we are as comedians. We're terrible.
Yeah, well, it's that one person though. I think it's because when you're a true, I guess, craftsman or whatever it is, a true artist, you can get to be a bit of a perfectionist sometimes, and it manifests that way for comedians because we like, well, why isn't this guy on board? And then we're like, what the hell,
Yeah, what's this guy's problem?
Yeah.
What more have I got to do?
Pat Oats is hilarious at that. Shout out to comedian Pat Oats. Check him out.
Oh yes, he is.
He can rip people apart that are like that. It's so funny. I've seen him do it so many times. It just makes for great comedy too. Because he's a
master.
Yeah. And he's definitely like, what you see is what you get, so it's funny because people come up to him after a show and they think it's a character, which of course it's exaggerated. Everyone exaggerates on stage, but he's pretty much more or less himself. So they're just like, oh,
yeah,
people.
Yep.
But
like,
yeah,
no, come over after the show's over, and then he'll tell you what he really thinks.
Yeah. Well, he's a really good critic too. And if you're a comedian listening to this coming up, check out his book that he has, and he writes articles too, all about comedy, and it's useful stuff to the people on the like on the open mic, or if you're getting started. I mean, there's stuff in there for pros that they could take them too, but what I mean is like you could digest it and relate to it as an open micer.
Yeah, he wrote it specifically for people who've never done comedy before or they're new at it.
Yeah.
And I commend him for it because he knew he wasn't going to get rich off of it. He really did it because he loves comedy. And he's tired of seeing bad comics.
Yeah, exactly.
It's painful to watch a new comic start out because all the mistakes they're going to make. You're going to watch them do it, and it's like, man, if we could just get you through this learning curve a little bit quicker. And that's what I love about his book is it helps you get through those, that first year growing pains. It's like, here, just read this book and you're going to be miles ahead of where you would have been.
Yeah. It's kind of like when to use an analogy about me now, when I started to play poker, I think it was like 2009, 2010. And I pretty much supported myself. It was like a part-time job for a while until I started doing comedy, I guess, in 2013. But the reason I say that is, did I just lose my train of thought? Are we live, everybody? Let me see. Let me look at the chat and I'll get my point back.
Oh, well, you were talking about how being new, you started.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I read a bunch of books and kind of played a little bit with friends and stuff, but I didn't go to the casino until I read a bunch of books on it and like had it down. So this way it's the same thing. Instead of you could just jump into a poker table and you're going to probably lose a lot of money to learn them lessons, or you could just read about it and then you can make money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I mean, you still have to do it to learn.
oh yeah.
But the more prepared you are, the better. I mean,
Yeah.
why make it harder on yourself if you don't need to?
Yeah, exactly. So why don't we talk about a little bit about like when you started comedy and some of the people you've performed with and stuff like that, you know, like what it's been like throughout your life.
Oh, sure. It was my wife who really pushed me to do stand up. I'd always wanted to do it. I just didn't know how you get started. It's like, how do you just jump in, what do you do? And so finally I got to a point in my life, I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. And found an open mic at Stanford and Sons in Kansas City. It was a Monday night. I had about 3 minutes of jokes that I kind of had prepared. And I got up there. They made me go last because I was the only first timer on the bill. So they made me go very last. And I got a couple chuckles and I was like, this is it, man. This is it. This is what I'm doing for the rest of my life.
Nice.
And just from there, everywhere and anytime I could get on stage, I was doing it, And
what year was this? Did you say?
November of '98.
Ooh, wow, 98. That was a big month for me too. What a synchronicity. But yeah, that's awesome. And where was it?
In Kansas City, Missouri.
Oh, wow.
So I was there for about a year, and then we ended up moving to back to Utah, where me and the wife were originally from. And took a few months, but I found some other people doing comedy and got involved with them. Not a lot of, I think there was about 6 of us who were really active in comedy. Well, maybe 8. And one of the guys was a professional comic who had his own clubs, and we got talking and ended up I helped him start the Wise Guys comedy chain. And I quit my job working for the bus system, the UTA bus system, and went all in. I became the house MC and can help manage the place. And because of it, I got to open for like Bobcat Goldthwait, Tommy Chong, Mitch Hedberg.
Oh, wow.
Nice. Patrice O'Neill.
Wow.
Pauly Shore. Screech. Screech from Saved by the Bell.
Dustin Diamond, right?
Yes, Dustin Diamond worked with him a few times.
Did he?
And the list just goes on and on. Just all these big names that we're bringing in, and because I was the house MC, I got to open for all of them, and so that was huge. Just being able to work with a big name just about every weekend was amazing. I mean, that's like a university education right there. Sitting there every weekend, you're sitting at a guest lecture of basically on comedy, and it was a blast. Did that for a few years, and then we ended up moving to Texas for a bit, and then eventually up here to Connecticut. And I was in comedy about 7 years when I moved up here, and there was hardly anything going on. I mean, there were a few things here and there, but not a lot. And that's where I met Pat. He had just got started. Jerry Woolley. I don't know if you ever.
Oh, yeah.
It was just kind of a fledgling scene, and jumped in it, and it was kind of fun because I'd been a headliner, and I was working with all these other guys. Darren Rivera was there, and
oh yeah, Rice and Bean Joker, shout out.
Yes, and so I knew how to start clubs, I knew how to run shows and stuff, and so with these guys, I was like, look, just go find a place and set up a show. I'll come and headline it. And you guys do as much time as you can, and then I'll just finish out the time. I can do the whole hour and a half myself. I didn't need anybody to do time. So the deal was you do as much time as you can do that you feel good about, and then I'll just finish it up.
Nice.
So if they're ready to do more, they can do more. If not, didn't, and that was the kind of shows that we were setting up, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. It's so weird now to go in the Connecticut scene because there's so many people in it now. It's just, back then everybody knew everybody because there just wasn't that many. Now it's kind of off the charts how many people are doing comedy now. That's everywhere. I think COVID inspired a lot of people to start doing stand-up. So the market is talent is kind of really big right now, which is good. It's good, pushes you
like
to
a
work
comedy
harder.
boom.
Yeah, it really was.
Wow. Yeah, I
But,
remember I went to do an open mic in 2021 and I haven't done it. I started an open mic in 2020 and then we all know what happened. Wah, wah, wah. And then so in 2021, I think it was November, I went to an open mic just to go do it. And yeah, I didn't know anybody there until right before it started. And who was it that showed up? Mo Green showed up, I think, and I'll remember his name. Sorry, guys, my brain is just. But yeah, it was cool. I had a good time, and yeah, it's nuts because even when I started, we all kind of knew each other. There were some people, not everybody knew everybody, but especially when we had Joker's Wild going.
that was really helpful. Have that going.
Yeah, that was
That really helped the scene quite a bit, I think.
Good run. Somebody that I just did their wedding. I DJ their wedding, and they live near Joker's Wild, like right next door. They're like, "Why isn't it open?" And I'm like, "Great question."
Is this still empty?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh wow!
I think with this comedy boom, somebody could do something with it. Come on, guys, get on it.
I think it's probably just the situation with the building itself is probably the problem. I'm sure.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially New Haven. What up, Kitty?
Yeah, we just we have 4 kittens. They every time I sit down, they all want to jump all over me.
Oh, that's funny. I have a black cat right here next to me too. I guess we're both a bunch of warlocks, huh?
There we are. I also got 2 dogs. I got a German Shepherd and a pit bull. That
Ooh.
they were lying here, and they usually sit here and yelp at me the whole time I'm talking because they assume if I'm talking, then I must be talking to them. So they want to be involved in the conversation. So
Oh, that's hilarious.
I'm outside or something, but because usually they're sitting here yelping at me.
That's hilarious. Yeah, my cats do the same thing. They'll either try to climb on me or and my parents, because in 2020 I moved back to save money up, and I've been doing a really good job of that this year. I moved with my parents, and I mean I lived on my own like since I was 18, basically, because I was in the Marines and I got out and stuff. And I'm 46 now, so I moved in, and it's been cool though. They just both retired last year, so I've been able to help them with stuff. Although it's a rough adjustment at first, after living on your own for a while. But yeah, it's been going pretty well. Why did I'm like losing my mind today. What's going on? I know what I did want to talk about though. Next was what it was like for you to go to the level that you were at, and then all of a sudden all these people know who you are, like we were talking about before.
Well, it was funny that I've always worked on doing different characters and stuff in my act, and I had this idea for one. It's based off my grandfather, who was an alcoholic. And he used to always tell me and my cousin all these weird life lessons and tell stories from his childhood. And he was pretty much sloshed off his mind most of the time. And so it was sort of this kind of meandering, nonsensical weirdness. And then all of a sudden he would just say something brilliant and then call us knuckleheads and kick us out of the house. And I'd always wanted to do something with that, and I never quite knew what to do. And then I was watching a friend of mine do these Instagram life coach videos. and he's sitting there. He's a good looking dude. He's got perfect body, great tan. His wife's awesome and she's hot. She makes a lot of money. They have a big house. They got fancy cars. And he's giving people life advice. And it's one of these things where it's like, okay, he's saying something good. He's being positive. But it's like, okay, what does this guy know anything about my life? You just kind of tune him out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yes.
And so I'm watching it, and I'm watching this thing. And the only reason I'm watching it is because he's a friend of mine. And as I'm watching the thing, it just started making me laugh. And that's when I got the idea. That's it. My drunk grandfather is the world's worst life coach. And so from that, I started developing it, and the character kind of became his own thing, and just started having fun with it. I did a few videos, but they really didn't go anywhere. And then, of course, the thing happened in 2020, and all my gigs got canceled. Because I had done stand-up for years, but I'd kind of just made it a hobby for the most part because I was waiting for my kids to grow up because I hated being on the road all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm doing a gig in Montana, and when I'm on stage, everything's great. But then I got to go sit in this, dumb hotel room. And I'm thinking, I really like my family and my wife and kids. I'd rather be with them right now.
How dare you?
Yeah. And so I decided I wasn't going to do the road anymore. I would take gigs from time to time, but I wasn't going to be living on the road constantly until the kids were all grown up. Well, anyway, my youngest boy turned 18, and so I had time. So I started really booking stuff up and was getting a lot of gigs. And then, of course, the thing happened, and then all that work was gone. It was canceled. And so I'm sitting at home, like everybody else. What do I do? And that's when I thought, hey, I'm just going to really work on this character and see what I can do with him. And one of the videos took off and went big. And now all of a sudden, all these people start noticing me. And the character, he became more famous than I did. And people just assumed that I was him, that was me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I still get people who find out that it's a character and they get mad at me. Like, I don't know how much more obvious I can make it that it's a character. I mean, I don't hide it. I'm not trying to be, Larry the Cable Guy and pretend that I'm that all the time. But still, but just started having fun with it and goofing off. And when somebody's actually going to watch a video, it makes it a lot easier to make the video.
Yeah,
when you're making stuff and nobody's seeing it, you get like 7 likes, and that of those 7 likes, maybe one of them actually watched the video. Everybody's just like, yeah, okay, I'm being supportive. You know what that means. But now people are actually watching the videos and they're commenting, they're sharing them, and it's a blast. It's a lot of fun just knowing, hey, people are actually going to watch this. But at the same time, you always get that in the back of your head that, okay, this is probably going to be too stupid and people are going to tune out now. It's going to be over here. This is probably the one that's going to bring this whole thing to a halt. So you have that playing in your head all the time. It's kind of funny.
I think that's great that you brought that up about that voice in your head, because I've been... Spoiler alert, I'll just say I've been writing. I'm not going to say yet what it is. I don't like to reveal my projects until they're almost ready to be revealed, but I've been doing some writing, and I talk about the negative self-talk, how that is really what defeats a person. It's not even like an oppressor or your boss or your parents or, that guy in the office, whatever. It's really, I feel like those are excuses people use. I don't want to be preaching, but sometimes I'll just say in my life, that was an excuse I was using.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And now that I realize that, and I can combat the negative self-talk when I can remember, because, no one's perfect, or are we all perfect? But when I can remember to combat that negative self-talk it really helps. And those are the times in my life, like when I started doing comedy, you know, even when I started DJing, I had to fight that. Anything stepping away from like a normal job, I think there's a lot of that because of the way our society is. But it's always the people who become either famous or just do what they love to do for a living. They're the ones that overcome that negative self-talk and that fear. And sometimes it could be a motivating force, like the guy that owns my DJ company. He's been using it in a much healthier way now because I can realize he probably has a lot of that, but it was a driving force, but he was driving himself too much. But now he's starting to use it in a more positive way. So I think it's great that you brought that up because, yeah, I mean, like I said, that's my opinion. I really think that most people are just holding themselves back with that negative self-talk. And I think it kind of comes around in childhood because your parents, you know, everyone's well-meaning, but they're always telling you what to do. Then your teachers and all these external authorities, and you're basically trained kind of like a dog. You get rewarded for doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Could it be? But you know, I'm not, you know, I'm just making an observation here. I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
But
Well, they don't want you to get hurt. It's like, you
yeah,
don't want you to get your hopes up too high because, you know, it may not happen. And so, you know, that kind of stuff's always playing around in your head. I was always encouraged by my mother. She, you know, the more crazy and weird ideas I had, she thought it was great.
oh, that's
She
awesome.
was
Yeah, it's
always
great
very
to have that.
supportive. And but even with her support, you still have society, you still have everybody else and them and their expectations of you and what you are and what you're going to be. And you know, when you finally kind of just put that behind you, but I don't know that you ever fully can. It's certainly something you got to always deal with. You know, I did a video today where I talk about your thoughts. A lot of these negative thoughts that you have are not really your thoughts. They're other thoughts that have been shared with you or told to you that your brain just sort of echoing. It's not really a thought that you're really thinking. It's just the thought that you're remembering or you're hearing. And then when you start associating it that it is your thought, that's when you start having that confusion. When you start to learn to not listen to those things, that those aren't your thoughts, that those are that's society's ideas, that's other people's ideas that are creeping into your head. And when you acknowledge it that way, it's easier to stop that kind of stuff because you acknowledge it, that it's not coming from you, that it's not from your true self. You know what I mean? And when you can finally just kind of separate yourself from it, you can hear it, but you don't take any, you know, put any merit to it. And it makes it so much easier, you know, instead of trying to fight it, because the more you say, oh no, that's not, then your brain goes, oh, we're giving attention to this idea. And then you create this cycle of stupidity of thinking thoughts that you don't want to think. And then you're trying to stop thinking them, and trying to not think about it makes you think about it even more. Whereas if you just go, oh, that's not my thought, that's not my idea, your brain goes, oh, okay. You know, you say, my thought is this, and then you replace it with a positive thing, a self-affirming thing. And then you build, that's how you get rid of those negative thoughts, is acknowledge them, acknowledge that they're not yours, they're not beneficial. But I said, don't try to stop thinking about them. Just acknowledge, oh, when I'm having this thought, this isn't coming from me. It's coming from, you know, that jerk back in 7th grade who was jealous of me and said horrible things about me behind my back. It's that guy. It's that guy's thoughts. It's not mine. He's jealous. The jealous weirdo back in then. This was his idea, not mine. And when you do that kind of stuff and make fun of it, it becomes a lot of fun. But again, it's still, no matter how well adjusted you are with it, it still creeps in there. You know, you still have that, you know, imposter syndrome. You know, you think, I can't believe all this success I'm having. I don't think I deserve this. You know, you start feeling those things. It's like, I'm just another knucklehead. There's a lot of people who are a lot more talented than I am. There's people who are better at this than I am. They're not successful like I am. Why? I don't know if I deserve this. You get those thoughts. And again, you have to stop and go, this isn't coming from anybody. This isn't coming from you. This is not what you signed up for. This isn't what you're thinking. You didn't get here because you thought this way. And so you're just always, no matter what level you get, when you get there, it becomes uncomfortable because you're trying to figure it out. You're trying to understand what's going on. And so you get all these thoughts popping in and out, and just being able to stay focused and stay present. Really, that's really the key, is just being present and just saying, hey, I'm enjoying this moment for what it is, and allowing yourself to just live it. It's just, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, I think you really nailed it there. And it makes me think of what I think about when I read about like the voice and the whispers of the devil and Satan. When you read about that in certain people's interpretation, could it just be that's how, if there is a devil, it communicates with us, or maybe it's just inside us? Everyone has different belief systems. I always like to keep my mind open, but is it that's the way that that's the voice that you have to conquer? Like there's nobody outside that you have to go conquer and fight. It's that voice, that's the whisper, that's the one trying to make the deal with you.
Sure.
Yeah,
Well, it's like Sun Tzu, the best way to defeat somebody is get them to defeat themselves. Get them to overthink it, get them to destroy themselves from within. And that's Satan's plan, is, he doesn't have to do a whole lot of work. It just convinces you that you're worth nothing and you're not capable of doing anything. And wow, you destroy yourself. That, or he gets you thinking you're too good and get you prideful, so you think that you are better than everybody else, and then you don't think you need to be any better. And so it's sort of a kind of gets you coming and going.
Yeah,
thinking both sides.
Exactly. And it's funny because we talked about something similar to this on my show, the Oversharing Show, which you could find at morelawsmoreproblems.com. That's my website. Click on the Oversharing tab. And if you haven't watched it, I call it the best darn show on the internet. And I'm a little biased, but we have a really good group of listeners over there. And something we were talking about, actually, some of them are in the chat. I'll give some shout outs to the chat. Zeralath, what's up? Sammy, I saw Adrian in there. Robo Honky, that's like the funniest name. Every time it comes to the chat, I die laughing. We got Slow Mo Moonbuggy. He's actually in Connecticut. Zeralath's in Connecticut too. And we got Josh Crusher Bear and QSB. Chris, what's up? Thank you guys so much for coming to hang out in the chat. So what we talk about on the Oversharing Show, something we talked about, is exactly what you're talking about, how people are self-defeated. Then we take it a step further because we like to use, I found that words have so many different meanings, right? That's why I got into symbolism, because symbolism is really more on your own interpretation, especially as you start to grow and mature mentally as a human. But words like slavery, you say that and people get this picture of antebellum South and whips and chains and all this crazy stuff. But there's another kind of slavery. It's like a mental slavery. And I think the origin of that, though, isn't somebody else making people slaves. It's the person making themselves a slave. Yeah, maybe because of their childhood or whatever conditioning, they were programmed into that, right? But now they're an adult and they're kind of a slave to themselves in that way, because they're doing a job that they're not really happy with. And these aren't judgments. Listen, I get it. You got to pay the bills. You got to do what you got to do. But sometimes some of us have a calling to get up in front of people or to write a book or to do art or whatever it is. And it's this voice that won't go away, So I think the people that do that, sometimes we have other different questions. I kind of get lost what I'm saying, but I remember what I was going to say. But anyway, so people are slaves to themselves, right? So when they're slaves to themselves because of whatever reason, then there's people that realize this because they're masters, but only to their own mind, to themselves, right? They're their own internal master. And some of these people could have great intentions and some can have bad intentions. And maybe the ones with bad intentions realize this and then can profit on a society that's like that. So I think I don't like to look at it as like it's a direct thing, but people kind of enslave themselves and then other people take advantage of it. But the good news is you could wake up to this, become your own master internally, and then you don't have to live like that right in where you live right now. You could go from being a mental slave, maybe to a mental master, like free, and you could really change your life. And I think that's really what, oh man, I forgot what I was tying in. Oh yeah. So the slavery thing to your mind. So I worked all weekend. I DJ'd weddings. So, and I had a meeting. So my brain's a little, but it's fine. It's cool. I think it makes for good entertainment. I think so. So anyway, if you're this mental slave, people could take advantage of it. So I think it's more like that. But like we were saying, you can undo this stuff. And there's several different ways to do it. And it's actually a really fun journey, in my opinion. It seems scary at first, but I think once you get out there and you start, like when I first started DJing and I was able to support myself on it and, pay all my bills, it was a really cool feeling. Like I played poker, like I said, I did other stuff, and that's another thing, like, because I was playing, I was having a fun time playing poker and getting money and paying my bills and stuff. So I was kind of away from that system. And I think that there's so many different ways to do it. I mean, you're a comedian, but I mean, you could be a chef, you can open a restaurant, like there's all these things. Not that I'm telling people to open restaurants, because that is hard work, but
that is.
That was a bad example. But yeah, whatever your calling is, go do it, because guess what? We're all going to die.
We're all going to die. Nobody gets out of here alive.
That's right.
No, it was funny when I quit my job working for the track system in Utah, the transportation system. Yeah, I had a pretty decent job, had good benefits. And when I just quit to go do comedy full time, people were like, "Oh, you're not making any money. How can you do it? How can you walk away from this great job?" And I'm going, you know what? I'm making basically the same amount of money I was making doing that. But now I'm doing what I love doing. I love coming to work. I love being on stage. I love every part of it. I hated the other job. But now I'm doing what I love to do. Sure, I'm not getting rich. I'm making the same, maybe a little bit less, but man, I'm happier. And I love being here. And I know that in order to make more money, it's completely determined by me and my actions. And if I get funnier and I get more work as a comic, that's because of me. It's because of my merit. Whereas the other job, the only way I could make more money was put in more hours, work longer periods of time. But to be able to move up was going to take, it takes a year to two. You got to pass all these tests. And to get anywhere financially was going to take, 5 to 10 years before you really get a job in the system that is a really well-paying job. Up till then, it's okay. Whereas when I'm a comic, it's I could go and do a gig and make twice as much money in one night as I do in a whole month. But that's determined by me and how funny I am and how hard I work. And when you start to see that, I think of it that way, that, hey, yeah, I'm not making as much money. I'm not getting rich, but I'm doing what I love. And you can't fault yourself for that. I mean, this is great. And then once you do that, once you start experiencing those moments, then it opens you all up to other things. It's like, well, what else can I do that I enjoy doing that I can make some money, And so you start opening yourself up to other opportunities. And it is a great way to change your mindset. When you finally have that moment, that switch, and it really is a one moment thing. It's not something that you I guess some people kind of build into it, or at least they think they do. But the journey begins when you decide, hey, I want to be in control of my own destiny. I am in control of my own destiny. I'm where I choose to be. And when you start making those choices, man, it's so liberating. Sure, it's scary. Sure, it's terrifying. But when you're willing to give up what you have now to get something better,
I think it's that fear that we're afraid of losing what we already have. That's what keeps people so much in place. It's like, well, I've got a job, I've got a car, I don't want to lose this. I'm just barely holding on. If I don't make enough money, I'm not going to have enough payment to pay the car. We're always worried about holding on to this stuff that really, it's nothing. None of it is worth anything, And when you finally just let go of that and you say, hey, I'm willing to give this up to get something better. I'm willing to give this up to have what I want. Once you let go of all that stuff, you let go of that, you let go of your ego and you just let it happen, man, everything just starts to open up for you. It may not happen fast, but when you see it and you start seeing the world from that perspective, just everything just starts opening up. And you feel when you take charge of your life and you stop with this victim mentality, when you stop with this woe is me and all that stuff, and life isn't fair. Well, life isn't fair. But life is what you make it. It's a beautiful gift that we've got here. As I say often, whether you think you came from a kind, wise God that created us for a purpose, or you think we're just some happy accident, regardless, we're here. Here we are. We've got this life. What are you going to do with it? It's entirely up to you. It's entirely up to you what you do with this thing. You can wither away in a ball and cry and feel bad for yourself, or you could just say, here we go. Let's make the best of it. Let's see what we can do. Let's have some fun. Let's get down to it and do it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny that you say it that way, because something we talked about on my show, on the Oversharing Show, also was division. We basically talked about how there's, we talked about all the forms of division. We even started out with like normal stuff like sports teams and like where you're from and all of these, you have these points of divisions. Then it goes into like political, right? Are you Democrat or Republican? And then are you a Christian or a Muslim? Or are you an atheist? And a lot of people talk about these ideas, but I'm like, I don't care what you believe. Well, okay, we can always have an interesting conversation, and I do care about how you arrived at your belief system and all that stuff. I'm fascinated with that. But what I mean is that's just like a side hobby, and I'm interested in that stuff. But like in the real world, I want to know, like, are you living according to the golden rule? Stuff like that. Like, according, some people say natural law, some people say God's law. And basically just what I mean is, like, are you doing unto others how you want to have done? Or when you apply it apophatically, it's do not do unto others what you don't want done yourself. If you look at it in reverse, are you living that lifestyle, then cool, man, we could be friends. Like a comedian I listen to, Owen Benjamin, very controversial, but one thing he says is like, I could just be 90s friends with somebody. You know what I mean? Like, let's take, he's like, the 90s were terrible for materialism, but the friendships, it's like, you could be friends with anybody. You could be friends with a Republican or like all this stuff. He's like, I'm taking it back to that. He's like, I don't care as long as you're not messing with me. So that's kind of what I feel. And we talked about that in that episode. And I think that you really found a genius way to crush all those barriers with that. Just like I was saying in the beginning of the show, you're able to transmit this truth to anybody, because people, there's crazy people out there that are going to be like, and what I find is a lot of these people, to swing one, and I don't like get involved in this stuff. I just delete, negative stuff. But I will say, I saw this a lot at open mics, and it's mostly, and even like in the music business and stuff, it's people who go to the comedy shows, but don't go, and they want to be a comedian, but they don't take that next step. And I was there myself before I started doing it. And I had some negative feedback for people, but now that I see what it is, I'm like, oh no, everybody's kind of doing their own thing. But to take it back to trolls or whatever, I think a lot of them are people who want to do this. They're just afraid to, or whatever it is, they're letting that negative self-talk get to them. So they just go out and criticize other people who are doing it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So that's why I don't even really worry about that stuff. But
yeah, I the greatest feature is block and delete. It's like, I don't need them. If you're not happy with me, I'll make it easy for you. I'll make it so you never see me again. Block.
Exactly. And shout out again to the chat, because I have a bunch of moderators. I'm about to make another one here. Awesome. I can't talk. Awesome Austin. Well, I announce people's names for a living, and at weddings. Awesome Austin, everybody. Go check his channel out. It was really cool. He talks about a lot of interesting topics, and he had us on his live show. And I'm about to make him a moderator. Boom. Wait, yeah, there it is. There's your wrench. And what I was saying was, we have a lot of cool moderators that will just kick people out, because, you know, from time to time you get people in there and they're talking about like a good example is recently somebody was going in there with this religious mindset, but they weren't. They said they were a Christian. They alleged this, whatever. I'm not going to say what somebody believes, but they weren't acting like Christ.
Yeah.
Because like I said, Christ was a comedian, right? Like, and that's the thing I was going to say earlier too. You got to hang out with all these people, and it's because a lot of comedians, I mean, there's a lot of kind of awkward ones, but some of us become comedians, and I'm just going to be, I guess I'm going to be cocky here, because we're a little more intelligent than some of the people around us. And so we could see the humor and we're quicker with it, right? Everyone has their own gifts, right? I'm not like saying I'm better because of it, but anyway. So I think that, oh man, I see. The funny thing is, when I start to talk about this, my brain just goes in so many several directions that I lose my point.
Yeah.
But it's all right. When I don't think about it, it comes right back to me.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
It's part of we might be geniuses, but we're what's the terminology? Crazy or whatever. I can't remember.
My wife likes to call me absent-minded.
There you go, absent-minded. I like it.
And it's just that, you know, you get going on one idea, and then when you're thinking about that idea, it reminds you of another idea. So you start thinking about that idea, and so you start pursuing that idea. You still got this other idea that you're trying to think about, and you can't remember why you were thinking about that, because this idea is a lot more interesting than the other idea. But then when you remember, oh yeah, they're connected somehow, and then you start trying to remember why they're connected, which reminds you of something else and why they're connected. And it's because of this other thing that they're connected through. And then you're trying to bring that idea back into this idea and that idea. And by that point in time, you're thinking, I don't think anybody's following me, because I'm not quite sure where I'm going with this, but I know where I'm going with this, but I don't know how to explain where I'm going with this, because I don't think anybody's going to know what I'm talking about when I get there, because I'm not even sure where I'm at right now.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I think you were close. No, that's exactly it. Yeah, I feel like our brains get ahead of our speaking when you're a genius or whatever the heck it is. But yeah, I think that's why people like us get into these roles of comedy.
Well, it was funny when I studied philosophy. I'm sitting there in a class, and we're all talking about the professor's telling us what the real world of philosophy basically is. And that really comes down to is, if you want to become a real philosopher, you have to become a teacher, you have to become a professor. So you have to get a doctorate degree in philosophy, and then you have to write philosophy papers for other philosophers to read. And other philosophers are expecting you to talk like a philosopher. So philosophers we kind of have our own language. And it's a language that only we speak, because anything outside of philosophy, the terms are so obscure and weird that we've interpreted everything in different ways, that having a conversation with a normal person about philosophy becomes a complete worthless point and a worthless endeavor, because they don't know what you're talking about. And you don't know how to explain it to them in a way they would understand it. And so this is what modern philosophy is. It's just a bunch of philosophers writing philosophy for each other. And it's not advancing anything other than people's degrees. And that's it. That's the modern philosophy. And I thought, I don't want to be a part of that. You know what I mean? This is silly. I mean, philosophy should change people's lives. The idea behind philosophy is that we examine life, and we take what we can from it, and we pass that information on to help people make a better life. That's what it should be. And I saw this as an opportunity. It's like, man, I can teach philosophy to people who don't know they're being taught philosophy. and it's through comedy. And being able to bring that together has been just an absolute delight. That's the funnest thing to me about all of this, is people don't even fully comprehend sometimes. I think many do, but a lot don't realize that I'm teaching them the basic tenets of Stoicism, that I'm teaching them Buddhism. I'm teaching them from Christ. I'm teaching you from the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount. I'm teaching them these things, but I'm doing it in such a ridiculous way. They don't realize that they're being taught anything. They just think it's just some knucklehead out in the middle of the woods talking to himself. But I'm delivering, knowledge from Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, Kant, Epictetus. All these great philosophers is where I'm drawing all this from, and just packaging it in a way that people can understand. And that's it. I'm just taking philosophy and I'm making it so that people understand it in a silly, fun way. And that's it. If people want, what are you doing? That's what I'm doing. I'm teaching people philosophy and getting them to realize that life is a lot more simple than we make it out to be, and that we should be enjoying ourselves. And the less we take it seriously, the more serious we can be about doing things. We can actually help people when we're not so caught up in it ourselves. You know what I mean? It's if you're so worried about yourself and everything about yourself, and you're so absorbed in you, then you're not helping anybody else. But when you realize that it's not about you, and that you give of yourself, as Christ taught, love one another as you loved me. And when you turn that out to the world, and you start giving that kind of love, and you start putting that out to the world, man, it's the most self-love thing you could do, is loving other people, because you can't help but love other people without loving yourself at the same time. It's a vicious, beautiful cycle. And when you finally realize that, and you just do it, then you don't have time to be depressed and have anxiety, because you're not worried about you. You're not worried about how this affects you. You're just giving and giving and giving. And the more you give, the more you get in return. It's an amazing, amazing thing. And it's so simple. It's so simple. And why we want to make it complicated, because it gives us an out. If it's so hard and it's so difficult, then only the smartest, brightest, gifted people can achieve these things. And that's what they want you to believe. And you know who they are? The people that want to take advantage of you. They want you mad and upset and depressed all the time. They want to convince you that it's hard. They don't want you to know it's easy. But when you finally realize it is that easy, that it really is just a switch in your brain where you go, hey, you know what? I'm controlling, and I'm the master of my own destiny. I'm in control. I'm not a victim. And you own that. It all just opens up to you. It's a big, beautiful, wonderful, amazing world with all of its difficulties and frailties and mishaps and misfortune. I wrote a thing not so long ago where I talk about how I hope that you have the fortune to experience misfortune, because it's through the difficulties in life that you've learned how to appreciate the good things. If everything was good all the time, you wouldn't know what good was. That would just be normal, just be humdrum. It'd be boring, and you wouldn't even fully comprehend what was good. But when you experience the bad, when you have bad relationships, when you fail at something you enjoy, when you create something and nobody appreciates it, when you have a friend that betrays you, when you go through all these misfortunes and difficulties, then when you find a friend who's really true, it's a great thing, and you learn to cherish them. When you find love, you know what it is, because you know what it's not. When you create art just for the joy of creating it, and you don't care if other people appreciate it, you appreciate it. That when you can learn to just love that and just live life that way, man, it's so much fun. Life is an amazing thing. It's an amazingly beautiful thing We just get out of our own way, let ourselves live.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you kind of blew my mind there. Because I think I felt like I got like a download. I just like unlocked a code because I've also studied a lot of different philosophers, and I studied some because of the people that I followed. They were into people who were kind of overshadowed or their ideas were pushed away. So but it's basically what you're saying, but I just came across it in a different manner. But what you say about making it so everybody could digest it on some level, it reminds me of like a living parable. Like Jesus, well, I know we talk about this on my show too, how Jesus would speak in parables and he would reach everybody at whatever level they were on, where they were, their level of consciousness, we'll say. Some people were like, that was some deep shit, and some people are like, oh, that was hilarious, or that was a funny, that's why I think, again, Jesus was a comedian. So on that, you really kind of figure that out. So I think that's brilliant, and it's really inspiring me. Thank you, because now I have a few ideas. I'm gonna turn my hair gray, and no, I'm just kidding. I got an idea. I'm gonna be that young guy that pretends to be older.
There you go.
No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna be myself, but I'm gonna apply what you've applied in your life in a similar way in certain aspects. So yes, thank you. And the other thing I wanted to talk about that you talk about, that I talk about a lot, is victim consciousness. And I'm actually writing about this too. And I talk about, in the beginning of my writing, I'm like, could victim consciousness be the root of all evil? ? And then I go about trying to prove my case, or make a case for it anyway. Not that but yeah, it's really amazing when you think about it, because this is something I'm only talking about so much because I've worked on it a bunch in my own life. And it's helped me, because once you realize the people that you think are holding you back, it's not them. Like we were saying, it's yourself. You really start to make.
Well, that's really is the horror of the victim mentality, is that the idea is that if you are convinced that you're a victim and that you're not successful, or you're harmed because of somebody else, then you're accepting the premise that somebody else has power over you. And that's what they want. That's what is the danger of that victim mentality, is that you accept that someone or something else has power over you beyond and outside of yourself. And when you accept that, you'll never walk away from it. You'll never let go, because it becomes your identity, that you're harmed and that you're being taken advantage of, and somehow they assign some sort of virtue to this idea that you're a tortured soul, that you're a martyr for the cause. And once you buy into that idea, man, it's hard to let go, because you feel victorious. You feel somehow that you're more virtuous, that you're better, that you're, so it's this prideful, it's this whole horrible system that just basically permeates and takes over every part of your psyche, and it's almost impossible to break free from. But once you buy into it, man, it's you think that you're right. You're convinced wholeheartedly. Yes, there are forces outside of myself that are making me so I'm not successful. And man, once you accept that as a premise, once you accept that as part of your being, you're done. Game is over. You're a slave to the system forever.
Yeah, totally, dude. And really quickly, speaking of artists and people doing their art, there's somebody in the chat I want to shout out. IO Walks. His channel is IO Walks. He makes music and does like walking videos and stuff, and I think it's really cool. So check him out, everybody. Cool. Yeah, we got to show love to our supporters.
Nice.
And somebody earlier said this in the chat, and I didn't say it, but they were like, if you guys kept going with that bit in the beginning, that he was like, it was better than Kaufman, or he was like, it was like Kaufman level but better, or said something like that. I can't remember the exact quote, but yeah, we got some really cool listeners, man. They they're really smart, and they love that kind of because they get it, what we're saying to each other, they understand it too. And that was Zeralath. He has a channel too. Check him out. He's a he's more of a, I guess you could say like a pagan or whatever, but he's into like Norse mythology, like what the word pagan really means, which just meant farmer back in the day, or somebody who,
Yeah.
you know, lived according to nature. So he's more in that realm, but he, you know, like we were saying earlier, he lives by that golden rule type of thing. And he's just come to these truths in a way that relates better to him. And it makes sense. Like we talk about it all the time. It's really amazing stuff. So yeah, and Iowalks actually came here through Zeralath because he was a fan of his. So yeah, it's cool. That's how these little communities grow. And then the next step is to make internet friends real. And you could do that by going to see Rodney Norman perform live. So you can make an internet friend real.
Live and in person, my friends.
Yeah, it's amazing. I could say I haven't seen him. I haven't got a chance yet to see him since 2020. But before that, even every time I performed with him, he always made me laugh a bunch. So go see him, everybody.
Yes, I will entertain you for an evening, but I will change your life forever.
Maybe you could give some advice. So somebody in the chat, and you can give them some funny advice too. They've actually started to watch my show and stuff recently. We've been talking. She's a really cool girl, Caribe Root, and I'll just say that's who she is in the chat. And she lives locally too. She lives in Connecticut. And so since I'm not going to really say her name, I don't want to blow up her whole spot. But so she has a spouse that doesn't exactly agree with her and a lot of things, like doesn't feel the same way about 2020. We'll just say that, you know. But she's still there for him, and she's a great person. But I would say, like, what kind of advice could you give to her, somebody in her situation? You could give it.
Well, the thing you got to remember is that you accepted that person for whatever reason, and that you're learning something from that person by them being the person that they are. And that you shouldn't try to change that person, because you're never going to change that person. That person's got to change themselves. So don't think that you got to change the person, because they're not going to change. And if they do change, then they're not going to be the person that you're actually in love with. So you just love them, you accept them, and instead of getting upset and bothered about them being different than you, you should appreciate that they're different than you, and that you're there to learn something from them. So you're not. So what I'm trying to say is that, you know, if your friend has they go out and they get in a car accident and they break their legs and they can't walk anymore, so they got to be in a wheelchair, you make changes, and you started making adjustments, because you go, okay, well, they're in a wheelchair now, and so, you know, you get a nice parking space everywhere you go, and you got hold doors open all the time well, you make adjustments, because they can't do all the things they used to be able to do, and I think life is different. Well, you just gotta know that they got things like that where they're just not going to see things the way you see it. And so instead of getting upset that they're not going to see it the way you see it, just appreciate that they see it the way they see it. And maybe there's something that you need to learn about what you see based on what they're seeing. And that will help you have a better understanding of what it is that you're seeing. So instead of thinking that you got to change anything, just like them, they're a partner in your whole adventure. And then you'll find that you'll love and appreciate them and yourself even more.
Wow. Do you charge for this advice, Rodney?
I should.
Oops. Yeah, I think that would be.
Is that helpful?
You kind of do. Go see Rodney live, everybody.
Yeah. No, people have tried to get me to do the life coach thing, and I'm like, nah, I can't do it. I can't.
Oh yeah, no. Just come see me perform a show, everybody.
I am working on a couple book ideas.
Ooh.
And
what about a special?
Yeah, I kind of want to do. I'm working on this whole.
We'll go back to the books. I'm sorry, but go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Well, no, I'm working on this whole angle of the character Leonard McCrunsky doing a TED talk, and then eventually doing motivational speaking. And I'll have a whole speech of just basically the meaning of life according to Leonard McCrunsky. And it will take you through
Wow.
Yeah, basically, it just breaks down that no matter what your religious or political affiliation is, you will not be able to escape the logic and the
Watch out for the mob with the cross. You start
Yes.
saying that stuff out loud. I'm just kidding.
Well, you know, that's the thing is, I like to point out to my fellow Christians, you know, when I start talking about this stuff, they're like, oh no, the purpose of life is to accept God as your savior, and Jesus is your savior, and confess him. Okay, that's great. Okay, you've done that. Now what do? He gave you a life. He's just expect you to just kind of twiddle your thumbs and wait till he comes back. Is that it? No. You're over the parable of the talents. He wants you to get out there and do something. He wants you to live. Do something with your life. Holy freaking crap. Get off your butt and start living, having a good time. And you made this life so you could have a good time, so you could learn and grow. You're just going to sit around and get mad at everybody because they don't think the way you do? Get off your high horse. Start living. God gave you a gift. Live it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean,
the biggest problem with Christianity is Christians.
Yeah.
You know, because we all want to interpret it our way, and then we think our way is better than everybody else's way. And it's like, okay, look, do you have a good relationship with God? Do you really fully believe that Christ is your savior? Do you have faith in that way? Then fantastic, live it. You know, go around condemning.
How dare you?
They're not your way, doing it your way.
Sorry.
We're all on a different path. Well, but you know what? Those who seek the truth, those who seek knowledge and understanding and light, they find it.
Yeah. I think that's 1,000%. I think, you know what that is, it kind of reminds me of what we're talking about, division. Doesn't that sound more like a tool of division? I'm just asking a question, everybody.
Yeah, well, it's really kind of a problem with any system. You always have the elitists who think that, well, I'm more saved than everyone else. Let me go to my Greek edition of the Bible, and I shall refute everything that you have just said, and I shall prove that you are in fact inferior. But I do so with a Christian heart full of love. You know, that whole thing.
Yes, I'm very familiar with that. I've heard them referred to as Trinitarians, some people, or Churchians, by Owen Benjamin Bears and that crowd.
Because I like to tell people, I don't think of myself as a religious person. I think of myself as someone who's striving to be a righteous person.
Yeah,
and there's a difference. I know a lot of religious people who are horrible, rotten, miserable monsters. And I know a lot of people who are not religious at all, who are some of the most wonderful and amazing people you'll ever meet. And vice versa. I also know people who are very religious, who are absolutely amazing and astounding people who truly live their religion. I would say that group's actually larger than those who aren't that way in religion. But in the same way, I know a lot of people who don't go to church, who don't care about church, who feel disillusioned by church, but they're still humble and amazing, beautiful people that are living, they're living the golden rule. They live and care for other people. And there's also those people who aren't religious, who are horrible, rotten, miserable, despicable beings who are only in it for themselves. And that's life. That's the beautiful gift we're given. We get to explore all those options. We get to be all those if we want to. We can try them out. You can take a whole philosophy and take it for a spin. Yeah. And nowhere in our existence will we ever be able to do this again. I don't think. Not the way we are here. This is such a unique opportunity, and why people don't see it for that and just love and just go, wow, this is amazing. I mean, it should blow your mind. Just absolutely blow your mind when you think about what we really are and how we're here, and how, basically this is all just energy. This is all energy, and it's all creating this illusion that we're experiencing.
Have you been watching my show?
It's just,
I'm
it's
sorry. Go ahead. Go
amazing.
ahead.
It's just, I mean, just the more you realize what it is, the more fascinating and incredible it all really is.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And that reminds me of another tool division that it's kind of a hot topic subject right now. So we're going to talk about it. It's what people think the realm is. Like, are we on a spinning ball? Are we on a flat earth with a dome? Are we in a simulation? Are we in a spiritual realm, which I happen to think is what we are in? And the way I explain that to people is, so no matter what rabbit hole you go down to confirm your bias, usually in this day and age of information, parentheses.
I got to step away for a second. I still listening.
Yeah, no problem. Usually in this model that we're in, we will find what we're looking for. So it's like seek and you shall find is also a type of a warning, because if you go looking for something, a lot of times you're gonna find it. So anyway, there's a lot of, like, I went down all these rabbit holes just to see. And again, it didn't really matter to me. It's more like, the way I look at it is just a fun hobby. Like,
Oh yeah.
it doesn't matter that much if I'm on a spinning ball or anything. Like, I don't get dogmatic about it, but I've looked into the flat earth, and they have some really interesting points. I'll just say it that way. Like, if you want to ostracize yourself from society and look into some new information, research I'm not even going to say it. Research that, and it's going to blow your mind. Now, there's other people that'll say, though, there's this one guy I followed, Jason Bershears from Archaics, and he was in Texas jail for like 26 years. He went in when he was like 17. And when he finally grew up in there, like in his mid-20s, I think it was, he started to read. And what he realized was, in Texas, in the prison system, the Masons, they flooded. There were probably a bunch of great gentlemen that did this. They flooded the prisons, with all these knowledgeable books from like philosophers and historians and all this stuff in the 1800s. And then because they really wanted to reform prisoners, and this isn't something he said, I've come to this on my own. Like, I know some people looked into this and it's true. So anyway, they have all these books and they never throw anything away. So as they build new prisons, they'll just ship them there, and they usually end up in the basement or like for a TV stand or whatever. So he found all these old books, did nothing but read for 20 something years and just document everything. And he started to come across this pattern about how certain things always play out. And, there's like all these years that an event will happen, and then there's like a pivot year, and then another event echoes. So it's like an echo, all these events that are happening. It's, they're just echoes of whatever. So he starts to develop this and so he thinks we're in a simulation, because from his point of view, and I'm not disparaging the guy, he's really awesome, but from his point of view, this to him makes sense if we're in a computer. And then I'll go one step further and I say, I think it's not a simulation, it's a spiritual realm, which means that we're going to think it's a computer. A physical computer that's in front of me right now is just a physical reflection of our brain. It's what we were able to make in the physical realm. And our brains, I'm saying, are a lot more advanced than computers, but it's our best attempt yet. So I think our brains are just way higher advanced, but we understand how it interfaces and stuff, so we could put it into that perspective. But I think it's a mystery, and I don't think we're supposed to understand. But it's a spiritual realm, because like you said, with the energy, if you zoom in on yourself, you're nothing but, there's nothing solid to look at. It's just all energy. So could we be now in this, and I was saying this on my show, in a focus of energy that's coming through? Think of a figure 8, right? And when it crosses that other 8, it gets this physical experience. We're literal energy, but we get this physical experience. And in this physical experience, we have free will, because I've heard this said a lot of different ways. Some people will say, they put it in the words like angels don't have free will. Some people say like even demons don't have free will. They're just summoned, and angels, the same thing. So if you think of these higher levels of consciousness, and say when we progress to the next step, whatever we are, there's going to be people, I think, that are like us behind us. But right now, we're able to do all these things, and it's going to affect where we kind of come back around. But I think it's just a cycle. Like, look, when I talk about spirit realm theory, I put on my allegedly hat. Shout out to Owen Benjamin again.
That's funny.
So I think everybody that with just going around and based on your behavior, you get into maybe a better realm and you swing back into the physical again. Maybe that's how reincarnation works, if there's such a thing. And I think that when you get outside of this physical experience, no matter how long you spend going around, it could be like years or whatever, you're learning lessons in a different way or whatever it is you're doing. I think if you, in this life right now, if you start to align your behaviors with the golden rule and stuff like that, and you start to walk your path and do these things we've been talking about, I think you go to kind of a different place. Not like a heaven and a hell. I mean, everyone has their own idea, but I think it's more like what they're talking about. And even when you come back into this realm, you're in a spot where you can kind of keep going with your spiritual growth, even though there's allegedly the veil of forgiveness and we don't remember. But I think that that's for a reason. I think what's imprinted on our soul or spirit, whatever you want to say, are part of energy in this realm or universe. I think it gets encoded and kind of lifted up to the next form of consciousness, just like music kind of goes up. And yeah, so that's what my current belief system is, which is the craziest one, which I'm excited about, but nobody calls you crazy. Because they're just like, oh, yeah, that's really deep. But like when you say I'm a flat earther, or I believe we're on a globe or simulation, people just fight. And what I see is they're all really cool people. They're just stuck on this, it's like I've said before, really quickly. I just, truth is a journey from A to Z. And a lot of people get stuck on the J's. They think they run the world.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to is what really matters. And one thing is that we're not even privy to what less than 0.5% of the reality that's going on around us. We can't even comprehend it. We don't even, there's energy and there's things happening around us that we can't see. We can't connect with it in any degree. As I like to say, I mean, here we talk about life and death. In reality, we're the ones who are dead. We're the ones separated from the true reality. We're the ones separated from real life. And in this moment, but this is the beauty of this moment, is that, like you were saying, is this physical reality that we're experiencing. In a way, it allows us to really focus on what matters most, because we're separated from all of that other stuff. We're out of that. We're here, and we get to see who and what we truly are when given full freedom. And that full freedom is that the idea that we have there's no boundaries. There's nothing really fully restricting us. You can get away with whatever you want. If you want to become a horrible, selfish being, you can get away with that in this life. You can do it. Many people do. If you want to be full of hate and anger and rage and a warmonger, you can get away with that in this life to a certain degree. If you're smart enough, you run for politics or invest heavily in the industrial military complex, you can get away with all that nonsense. On the other side, to just truly be a being of knowledge and light, and have a desire to just be good for the sake of just be good, you can do that too. I hear people often say that in the argument against the idea of God is that we have the problem with evil. They say, well, how can a God create a world that has all this evil? Well, I would say that there's another problem with that idea, and that is the problem of good. How is it that in this life where all these evil things happen, we still have a lot of good? We still have an enormous amount of good. There's still more good than there is evil. Evil gets the headlines, evil gets the attention, but more people are doing good and sharing love than they are evil. So how do you account for that in a world that there is no purpose or meaning, in a world where there are no rules, where there is no morality other than what we create ourselves? How is it that we are more moral and more good than we are evil. And the vast majority of us are. I mean, that's the reality of it. The vast majority of us are better than evil. We still do evil. We still make those mistakes. We still fall into those sins. But in reality, there's more good than there is evil. Now, how do you account for that in a world without a God? You know, that's my question. How do you account for all that good? And the other thing that you could usually say, well, we just do it because we're selfish beings. We just do it because it's a survival technique or some nonsense. But there is that's the beauty of this life. You can choose. You can be either horrible, terrible, miserable, selfish, or you can be loving and giving. And it's all your choice. No one's forcing you to do either. You can do it. You just, it's here. It's amazing. It truly is just amazing.
Yeah,
You hold your
100%.
backdrop up.
Huh?
Are you holding your backdrop up? Is that what you're doing?
Oh no, my cat's right here.
Oh, okay.
I'll swing. Yeah, see, swing her in a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, this is a shower curtain I got on Amazon.com. Everybody.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just pinned it up
dig
to
it.
a pipe. Yeah, I was sick of the fake backgrounds, and it's just paneling back there, so had to make it interesting. Speaking
That's
of backgrounds, Star Wars. I have
Oh,
a
yeah. That's my
quick theory.
I got my Star Wars, the old original Star Wars. The new stuff is just
Yeah, we get
crap nonsense.
it. Yeah.
Then I have Young Elvis. Then I have Aloha Elvis.
Ooh, I was born in 1976, by the way.
Oh yeah, that's a great year. I was
Yeah.
I was 6 years old.
Ooh, I could just imagine 6-year-old Rodney. Ooh, Rodney running the rip. Like but what I was gonna say was about Star Wars. I have an interesting theory I want to share really quick, see what you think. So I think the reason that Luke Skywalker, he was the only true good, the only good's the wrong word. So he was the only true master in that. And I think like I noticed because he listened to his own intuition. So I think the Jedi in the original prequel, I think they were just too blind. I mean, they even said it there, but they were just too, I guess you could say good, but they were just more trying to like praise a hierarchy.
They were
and
more
all show
dogmatic.
each other how good they were. But Luke was actually a real, like he listened to his instincts and he went and saved his friends, even though Yoda told him not to, you know? So I think he was more of like a gray Jedi, whatever. But I think that is really, I don't know if it's just a hidden message in there, if Lucas even knew he was doing it. Maybe it's just something that comes out of the ether and when people create art. But I think he's the that's the reason why he's like the real deal, where all the other ones, even later it's all grabbled, but they obviously they ruined it. But yeah, I think that's what was I gonna say? Yeah. And you get the story also of him with fighting or like the confrontation with the Emperor. And I think that's really great too, because it shows people that there's quote unquote evil people out there or whatever, but they're trying to get you into their game of like anger and hate and all that stuff, where you can look at it from compassion, and you could see the compassion because he saved his dad and everything. So he had compassion for that. And I think that's why he's like the real deal is Luke Skywalker. That's why I'm so pissed they made him like a joke in the new movies. I'm like, come on, man. Like, and it's funny because
a pathetic old man.
Yeah, but it makes sense because if you're trying to promote victim consciousness among people, why not destroy the ultimate hero and make him like it's not even worth it or whatever, you know, make him a joke.
Yeah.
Hilarious. But I don't know. I think it's still a great story. Holds up pretty well. I gotta watch.
I think
like to watch him again. Yes, so we have shout out to Robo Honky in the chat. That's like one of my favorite screen names because it reminds me of like, it makes me think of Futurama, you know, like I am Robo Honky, just like some guy like with like a I had one on a flannel, but like overalls with like a piece of wheat sticking out. You're like, I am Robo
Yeah.
Hockey. And then Sarcastic Warlocks in the chat. Shout out to Sarcastic. You're gonna have to go back to the beginning, dude. You're gonna love this. He is somebody I actually met in real life. Like I was saying, make internet friends real. And I stayed with him in Colorado for a couple of days. A few of us were on a trek to Sedona, Arizona to meet up to make internet friends real. And we stopped
Oh,
at our
cool.
friend's house and we stayed there for a couple of days. And he is a really good dude. He's gonna love because he wants. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. He writes some jokes. He wants to do comedy, and I've been trying to get him to do it, but he's moved since then, and he's got a family and stuff. But he definitely is like interested in because when I was there, we were like saying jokes back and forth to each other, and he's hilarious. I'm like, dude, work on this. But I get it. You get a family and stuff, like you said. It was, and I love that you said that. It was more important for you to raise your children correctly instead of going after the money.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, let's see. We've been going for about an hour and 45. So I think we could close on, unless there's anything else you wanted to say. I think we could close on maybe a funny story from when you were in the Marine Corps, because I did put Semper Funny, and I think people enjoy that stuff. Because I think, when I was I was kind of like a joker, but like undercover, people didn't know it, but I would impersonate officers and stuff. And then I got called into maintenance control one time after that guy left, because I worked on airplanes. So we all had different shops and we had an officer above us, and those were the guys that flew in the airplanes. And a lot of them they're all college educated, and some of them thought they were smarter than they were. But this one guy would always use big words, and he was like, he was really smart, but he didn't have the personality. He was like very awkward. So I would make fun of him. And after he left, they called me into maintenance control one day, and I thought I was in trouble. And I go in there, and like the sergeant major's in there, and he used to be, so the story of our sergeant major is he was in Vietnam in the army as a captain, and he saw the Marines fighting on another hill so fiercely. This is the tale he tells anyway. He saw them fighting so fiercely that when he got out of Vietnam, he joined the Marines, and he came in as a staff sergeant from being a captain in the army. And he just went into like recon and stuff, and in the grunts, and he worked his way up. And then his final duty was to just go with us in the air wing. And so he thought we were going to be like soft, but we're not as hard as those guys. But as far as like being mechanics, we're like the recon Marines of like working all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so so anyway, I got called in front of the sergeant major was there, some of the officers, and I did this impersonation, and I went up to people, and this guy, the sergeant major, definitely probably allegedly killed people. He was like a stone cold killer, like, good dude though, really good guy. I went up to him, and I'm like grabbing his like uniform, and I'm like, is this, like, because the guy did this thing with his eyebrow, and this is before The Rock, the wrestler or whatever. He did this thing, and he was tall. I'm 6'5". He was like same height as me. And he would just walk around straight up though, like, and he was kind of muscular. And when he moved, he didn't move his neck, so he had this whole thing going on. He would use big words. So I was just doing that, going up to people like that I had no business even touching, but they were all laughing. It was great. So it was like my first it was like my first show kind of in a way, it's funny. And it happened in the Marines. And when I went to get out, a master sergeant pulled me aside. He was in a different shop, but we were all pretty close because we'd been to Italy for a while and stuff. When we got back, he's like, I was thinking about getting out because I just almost done 4 years, and he was trying to talk me into staying. And he's like, I go, why? Because I'm a good mechanic. He's like, no, you suck, but you're funny. And he's like, you make this better. You make everybody laugh. And I'm like, yeah, but I could probably go find a job doing that somewhere else, like.
Yeah.
But I had a good time doing it though.
Oh, me too. I used to, I was a corporal my last year and a half, and it was so much fun because I used to have to run all the formations, get everybody ready, and then hand over to the sergeant and the first, whatever. But I'd have to do roll call and check on everybody, and all that kind of stuff. And I remember one morning I'm sitting there, and some Marine had done something. He was a real jerk. I mean, he knew he could get away with anything, so he was doing it. And I'm sitting there going one day and I said, look, you have one of two options. You either admit that you're doing this on purpose, or that you're a complete idiot. Because it's one of the two options. You're either intentionally are doing all this nonsense because you can get away with it, or you really are just that stupid. So which is it? Are you stupid, or are you just a jerk? You know, and it was just really funny because that was that moment where everybody's laughing, and he finally admitted that, yeah, he was just trying to get away with a lot of crap, and then he wised up after that. But it was just one of those moments. I had the Marines after we're done. They go, I don't know how you were able to do this, but for some reason you could call somebody out, make them look like a complete idiot, but they still like you when you're done. How do you do this? I mean, because we're just all sitting here in awe of what you've just accomplished, and you do it with everybody, because it was really quite fun for me. So.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's funny because that's one step. And then if they don't do what you say, I've seen people like that still will just be fuck ups. And then they got like taped to the side of a wing where the bomb was supposed to be, they didn't fly with them, but they, the maintenance crew grabbed them and just taped them up and let them hang there for a while. It's like,
yeah. Well, basically, that if you go to war, there's certain people you'll just shoot them yourself because you're not going to be able to rely on them when it
exactly, because they're going to get you killed.
Yeah, this guy's going to bail on you anyway, so you might as well just not have to defend and worry about him.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, please, can we just leave this guy back here, please? But you'll have less people on the front. That's okay. I'm okay with that.
Just tell him to run out first, charge that hill.
There you go.
Because then he could have a hero's death at least. Yeah, I think something other thing funny that happened to me was I was we were in Italy, and they had like these clamshell kind of hangars, they were like from World War II, I think, allegedly.
Yeah.
And they had porta potties outside, and I was in one, and they had two next to each other, and I was just taking a nap because they kept them very clean, like they didn't smell or anything. It was great. So I would just go in there during the day and sleep for like an hour or whatever. And one time I went in there to take a nap, and I hear this noise, I hear the door next to me. Someone gets in the other one. It's like a separate one, but I hear this crazy noise. I'm like, what the hell is that? And they took a ratchet strap because it was the master gunnery sergeant went in the other one, and they wanted to fuck with him. So they strapped me in too, though, because they didn't realize I was in there. So I'm like, guys, I'm in there. And they're like, oh man, sorry, Smitty, because they used to call me Smitty. They're like, we can't let you, if we let you out, we'll let him out. And I'm like, that's fine. I'm going back to sleep. And I just went to sleep. And he was like yelling and freaking out. It was so funny.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. The enlisted, we had our ways to get to people, like, even because it was just basically, it was a bunch of people fixing airplanes and then pulling elaborate pranks on people. So I had a really good time.
Yeah. I love my time in the Marine Corps, and I think of all the people in my life that I enjoy reconnecting with. There's a few people from high school I still like to connect with, but it's almost every single person I knew in the Marine Corps. When I find them and reconnect with them, there's just such an amazing bond. Even if it was just for a short period of time, there's nothing like it. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah. I also like that I meet somebody. So I did a wedding recently. Where there was a captain getting married, and he had his dress blues on. And I'm just, I got out as a Lance Corporal because they weren't promoting in my MOS at all. So, but I basically had the corporal privileges. Like, people just left me alone. They knew. And I had a mean gunnery sergeant who really liked me over me, which was another great story. He was our instructor while I was going to school, and he stayed back there because he didn't want to go on the carrier. So I got to the squadron, went on a carrier, came back, and like 6 months later, he came back from a staff sergeant as a gunnery sergeant now, and he was basically our shop NCO. So he was like, and before that, we only had a sergeant in there. So the other guys would come in, all the gunnies or whatever, they would kind of give us a hard time about things. and one in particular. And one day when Gunnery Sergeant Mills got back, this guy, other gunnery sergeant, yells at me for something. I don't remember what it was. So I go back into the shop and Gunny Mills is like, where you been? And I'm like, oh, and it's not like I was diming him out. I'm like, I was just getting yelled at. He's like, yelled at? He's like, by who? And he ran out there and he's like 5'3", you know, and Gunny Mills and the other guy was like 6'4", whatever, big dude. And he just starts screaming at him. It was so funny. And then nobody messed with me after that. Because I wasn't ever asking for anything, you know, and dude, it was so great. But he had to set an example because he knew people had been, you know, doing that. And he was like, I'm laying down the law, even though he was just like, his stripes are still wet, you know, he was like,
Yeah. I did. It was funny. Just before I got out, we had an IG inspection that was coming up. And the battalion, we were having we were having issues in my unit with weapons in the armory were missing. I had 4 rifles that were missing.
Oh no.
And they basically the captain pulled me aside and said, look, we need to get this straightened out for the IG inspection. We have 4 rifles that are missing and we don't know where they're at. And it's been getting pushed around, you know, basically they've been hiding it with paperwork, but they didn't know where these rifles were. And this is, you know, this is a court-martial offense. I mean, this is an M16. This is you know,
it's a weapon of war.
Weapon of war. And so I have the job to go and sort this all out. And so I'm going to hang out in the armory and I'm sorting it down. I finally figured out what had happened was that these were just 4 weapons that people went on TAD, temporary assigned duty, to other units. And one of them, when he went, he got court-martialed out while he was there. And his weapon never got returned to us. So it was on a ship floating around out in the Atlantic somewhere. And then basically the other 3 rifles were similar situations where the rifle just was taken out of the unit to go with temporary duty and it got stuck there for one reason or another. So I was able to find those 4 rifles, figured out where they were at, and then just instead of trying to getting the back, which would be a logistical nightmare, I found a way that I could just transfer ownership permanently to them so that they weren't our rifles at all, which is really what should have been done, but nobody knew what to do. So I figured it all out, you know, got it sorted out and finished out some other issues. But anyway, while I'm working on this, the first sergeant was like, look, this is all you do is you worry about this. He says, I don't care what anybody else thinks you should be doing or what they want you to do. You work directly for the captain and you do this. And that's it. He says, if you only have to spend an hour a week dealing with this, that's all you do. You do nothing else. This is your job, is to make sure this this passes the IG inspection. Right? Well, I got it all sorted out, and a couple people from my unit figured out that I wasn't ever there, and so they started, you know, messing with me and insisting that I have to come to the formations and stuff and all this. And I didn't want to pull rank, you know, with, you know, you don't want to piss off your staff NCOs, right? So I just show up to, I'm like, whatever. Okay, if you guys want me to go run PT with you, I'll go do it, right? So I'm going and I'm running PT with them one morning, and the captain and the first sergeant are out running, and they come and join us. And they see me in formation, and the first sergeant looks at me and goes, "What are you doing here, Norman?" I said, "Well, they insisted I'd be here." And the first sergeant goes up. I don't know what was said, but he goes up, talks to the gunnery sergeant. Oh, why we're running? We're out running, right? And then they eventually leave, and then we get to the end of the run, and you know we're dismissed or going. And the gunnery sergeant comes up to me and says, "Why didn't you tell me, Norman?"
Why don't you tell me that, they said, I go, I assumed everybody knew because it come down in a company memo. Well, I didn't see the memo. And, this was the gunnery sergeant who was always just always on my back. And to be given just this, carte blanche, I don't have to be a part of any of this. It was just such a glorious moment because he's just like, well, yeah, I don't want to ever see your face in our shop until they send you back. Okay.
Oh, that's
It
hilarious.
was glorious. It was the last few months of my time in the Marine Corps. And I just absolutely just had a blast. And we passed the IG with flying colors. And it was the first time, I think, in like 8 years that we had passed an IG inspection for the rifles, and it was like a big deal. And it was funny because they gave me an award for it, but they couldn't specifically say what the award was for because it would out them for what was going on.
Exactly.
It was quite hilarious. It was like a Barry Choice mask for going above and beyond Call of Duty, and that was it. They did explain why. It was just we just like you. We think you're doing a great job. We just don't want to talk about what the job is that you did.
Exactly. The fixer.
Yes. But it was just such a glorious moment just to have that gunnery sergeant apologize to me and say, "Okay, get out of my face. I don't want to see you again." Okay. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because he said something like, if we don't pass this is our ass and this is your ass too. Like
Pretty
okay,
much.
okay. Yeah.
Pretty much. But I cleared up our company, and then I helped others in the battalion. I helped them solve their problems because they were just having similar issues. So I actually ended up not just my company, but I ended up helping, fixing problems in the whole battalion.
Wow.
Just because I understood how it worked. But yeah, it was a glorious moment in my Marine Corps career. And then I'll never forget my last day in the Marine Corps. I was separating on a Friday. And it was one of those things where I go to final formation Friday morning. And then as soon as it's over, I go to company headquarters, I pick up my papers, and I'm gone, right? I'm done. And that morning, Thursday nights is the field day. That's when everybody cleans the barracks and everything. You remember. And that morning, the first sergeant gets up there and he starts yelling at everybody, saying the barracks were a disaster and that they were supposed to be going on in 96. He says, we're not going on in 96 until you pass inspection again. You failed last night. I'll be back through at noon. And if you fail again, I'll come back at 7:00 at night.
Oh no. I know what that's like.
Yeah. So, and he said, everybody who lives off on base, they have to come in and help everybody on base to get their rooms clean. And he said that the standards would go up, like your level of cleanliness. If you fail at noon, the level of cleanliness at 7 is going to be even more restricted, right? And so he's just giving them the up degree, so because they were supposed to be separating that morning at 9:00, everybody was supposed to be done and gone. And now we're saying you have to hang around till noon. So now everybody's 96 is getting put off a few more hours. And I'm just standing there thinking, man, what a glorious day to leave the Marine Corps. Because I knew there was nothing they could do to keep me there. I was done, as soon as everybody else is all pissing and moaning about it. And I just got a smile on my face. I'm like, this don't matter to me.
Exactly.
I'm gone. My truck was loaded and I was leaving. Goodbye.
I'm out. Try to stop me now.
Ouch.
I got the papers. Yeah.
As they say, once a Marine, always a Marine. So I didn't bother re-enlisting.
Oh, I love that. I think I'm gonna steal that. Did you make that up?
That's mine, man.
Oh shit. Okay, I won't totally steal it.
T-shirt.
Yeah, I like that. I'll say, as Rodney Norman says when I say it, but I'm gonna share it though. I'll say, I'm on a show called Oversharing. How can I help? And make sure you go check out my show. Rodney, where can people find you?
RodneyNorman.com. You can find all your Rodney Norman needs.
Awesome.
I'm on TikTok. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, everybody. Twitch. Nobody follows me on Twitch, but I'm on Twitch. And
Does it make you twitch?
and YouTube. I got a YouTube thing going here too.
Yeah. And go see Rodney live, everybody.
Yes, come and join me. I'm in Wyndham, Maine this week at Smitty's Cinema Friday night.
Oh, all right. Well, you
Come
got to
on.
jump on him. Go up to Maine and go see him.
I am well worth the drive, my friends.
Totally. I can attest to that. That's a claim I will stand by on this show. I don't like to make claims, but I'll stand by that one. And if you found me through Rodney, you could find me at morelawsmoreproblems.com or the Brandon Bonanza YouTube channel, and make sure you subscribe, hit the bell. You definitely want to check out the Oversharing show. And also I do live streams on my own sometimes because I've been doing podcasting since 2014. And also I wrote a book. You can get it at shadowworked.com. Shadowworked with an ED.
That'll work.
And I think I'm shadow working right now. That's all I'll say. Yeah. So thank you, Rodney, so much for coming on. We got to do this again sometime soon. This is
Yes, it was a pleasure.
dude. Yeah. All right. All right. Oh, shout out to the chat. Thank you guys for sticking around to the end. Wow, there's a lot of people. Well, everybody basically stayed to the end that was in here, which is amazing. So yeah, thank you guys so much for the support. And remember, the best way to support us is to just comment under this video, like, thumbs up, share it around, but definitely let us know what you think because we're into that stuff. So take care, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Oop, I almost hit the wrong one. Up. I guess we're not going live, but we're still going to be live for another minute. So anyway, wrong one.
Thank you for being here. It's the end of the show.
Exactly.
If
Good
we have
night,
any credits, you're any
sweetheart.
credits, be going
Well,
right
it's
now.
time to go. Bye. Yes, end it. There we go. All right. That was pretty fun at the end. All right.